land after a 9-hour flight. Your head is pounding, your standing heart rate jumps, and the first decision on your calendar feels strangely difficult. Before you call that jet lag, check whether fluid balance is the bottleneck. Sometimes your circadian rhythm has not shifted enough to explain the whole problem. Sometimes you are simply arriving under-recovered, under-moved, and poorly calibrated.
And the first operational question is not, how much water should I drink? It is, what changed and which signals agree? Because the traveler who feels terrible after landing may be dehydrated. They may also be sleep-deprived, over-caffeinated, hungry, or reacting to a long period of immobility.
Exactly. A headache, dry mouth, mental fog, elevated heart rate, and slower decisions can overlap across several causes. If you mislabel all of that as jet lag, you might cancel your productive work, reach for another coffee, force down a giant bottle of plain water, and then wake up repeatedly during your next sleep window. That is not recovery. That is an uncontrolled intervention layered on top of an uncertain diagnosis.
And most travelers miss the interaction. They think, I had one coffee, one salty meal, and I sat down for a few hours. Each item sounds minor. Together, after dry cabin air, disrupted sleep, and limited movement, they can produce a very different arrival state.
Exactly, because those are not separate checkboxes. Cabin air is relatively dry. You sit for hours, you may delay drinking because you do not want to leave your seat. Then airport coffee, alcohol, a salty meal, and irregular food timing alter the context again. None of those automatically creates an emergency, but the combination can create a performance drag before your body clock has even begun adapting.
Right, but let me challenge the measurement instinct before we build a dashboard. If you tell a tired traveler to calculate every sip, every milligram, and every bathroom visit, you have created another travel burden. The system has to survive a crowded terminal, a delayed connection, and a phone battery at 12%.
I'm not asking anyone to log every sip. I'm asking for 5 signals, captured consistently. Morning body weight when practical, resting heart rate, the change after standing, urine concentration as a rough trend, and thirst. Then add flight duration and the obvious context, sleep, caffeine, alcohol, meal timing, and climate. 5 signals, not 15. Enough structure to improve the next flight, not enough to turn travel into a laboratory.
5 signals I can defend. And the context matters, because a number without conditions can mislead you. A scale reading after a salty meal is not directly comparable to a morning reading at home. A wearable reading after sprinting through the terminal is not a resting measurement.
Start with your own baseline. If you have a travel scale or access to a consistent scale, record morning body weight before departure and again the morning after arrival, under similar conditions. A downward trend may suggest a change in total body water, but clothing, meals, timing, and different scales create noise. So one number is never proof. It becomes useful when it agrees with other signals. Then record resting heart rate after sitting quietly for a few minutes. Stand safely and observe what happens over the next couple of minutes. You are looking for a meaningful change from your own normal pattern, not a universal pass or fail number. If the change is repeatedly larger than usual and comes with dizziness, unusual fatigue, intense thirst, or a headache, slow down. That is a reason to reassess, not a diagnosis.
And record the flight itself. 2 hours and 9 hours are not the same operating environment. Note whether you slept, whether you drank alcohol, how much caffeine you had, and whether you were walking or sitting for most of the journey. The trail is the truth, but only if you record the trail accurately.
Once you have those signals, classify the arrival instead of reacting automatically. A likely underhydrated pattern might include a downward weight trend, darker or more concentrated urine than usual, thirst, headache, and a higher standing response. A normal range pattern might show measurements close to baseline, mild thirst, and energy that improves after a normal meal, light movement, or a reasonable sleep opportunity.
And the third pattern is overcorrection.
repeatedly clear urine, bloating, nausea, constant bathroom trips, or large amounts of water disconnected from thirst and conditions. People often treat clear urine as a performance score.
It is not. More is not automatically better. The goal is a stable operating range, not a water drinking contest. Body size, activity, climate, food, medications, and medical history all affect fluid needs. If several signals disagree, do not force a conclusion. Wait, gather a cleaner reading, and consider whether sleep debt or food timing explains the fatigue better.
So what does the protocol look like in an airport, not on a spreadsheet?
3 actions, followed by a pause. First, use a measured amount of fluid and sip steadily rather than compensating with a huge volume. Second, if it is medically appropriate for you, use 1 electrolyte serving according to the product label, not 2 because the flight was long, and not a homemade formula you cannot measure. Third, walk lightly for several minutes when it is safe, eat a normal meal, and protect the next sleep window.
Then reassess after about an hour, or according to your clinician's guidance. Are the headache and thirst improving? Does light movement help? Is your heart rate settling toward your normal pattern? If yes, do not keep escalating simply because you have not reached an imagined target. If the symptoms are severe, persistent, or accompanied by concerning signs, stop optimizing and seek medical care.
That reassessment window is the part people skip. They apply an intervention, wait 5 minutes, decide it failed, and apply another one. In real travel operations, that is how a small problem becomes a messy one.
Exactly. Your arrival kit should make the first decision easy. I use a collapsible bottle, pre-measured electrolyte packets, a small travel scale when practical, and a simple phone note. The note includes departure weight, arrival weight, flight duration, sleep, caffeine, alcohol, meal timing, resting heart rate, standing response, thirst, urine concentration as a rough trend, and what I did next.
Keep the packets labeled and in one consistent place. If you carry them across borders or through security, use the original packaging and follow the carrier and destination rules. The point is not to build a heroic travel kit. It is to remove the small failures that happen when you are tired.
You can build that portable foundation at shop.nomadlifesuccess.com. But the product is not the protocol. The protocol is the combination of a measured container, a labeled serving when appropriate, a record, light movement, and a stopping rule.
Let's make the 9-hour example concrete.
Imagine Maya leaves at 9 in the evening. She has 2 coffees, skips most of the meal, sleeps for 4 broken hours, and spends nearly the entire flight seated. The next morning, her weight is modestly below her usual trend. Her urine appears more concentrated than normal. Her standing heart rate is higher than her baseline, and she has a headache. No single measurement proves dehydration, but several signals agree. Maya does not pour down 2 liters and book a strategy call. She takes a measured amount of fluid, uses the labeled electrolyte serving only if it is appropriate for her, eats a normal meal, walks lightly for 10 minutes, and reassesses after roughly an hour. She may still be jet-lagged. The point is that she has addressed a plausible physical bottleneck without creating another one.
Now contrast that with Daniel. He feels exhausted, drinks several large bottles of plain water in quick succession, has clear urine, feels bloated, and wakes 3 times that night. He never checked his baseline or asked whether the problem was primarily sleep loss. That is not disciplined recovery. That is volume without information.
That is the common mistake, aggressive plain water loading. It can increase bathroom trips, disrupt sleep, worsen comfort, and, depending on the person and circumstances, contribute to an unsafe fluid balance. Plain water is not a universal correction for every post-flight symptom. Data doesn't care about your jet lag. It tells you to check the pattern before you add more.
One guardrail needs to be explicit. If you have kidney disease, heart conditions, blood pressure concerns, a fluid restriction, gastrointestinal problems, or medication interactions, speak with a qualified clinician before changing fluid or electrolyte intake. Over-the-counter does not mean universally appropriate.
And treat the measurements as trend signals, not medical tests. Wearables can be noisy. Urine appearance is affected by more than hydration. Body weight shifts with food and sodium. If you have persistent severe symptoms, fainting, confusion, chest discomfort, or anything that feels medically urgent, get professional care instead of trying to optimize your spreadsheet.
For everyone else, the system stays small. Establish a baseline, record the flight conditions, compare several signals, make the smallest reasonable adjustment, and reassess before you escalate.
Before your next departure, open a note titled Next Flight Calibration. Record your morning weight when practical, resting and standing heart rate, thirst, urine concentration as a rough trend, flight duration, caffeine, alcohol, meal timing, and next morning energy. After several flights, compare the records. You may discover that your worst arrival days follow poor sleep and a late salty meal, not simply a lack of water. Your immediate action is to pack the collapsible bottle, labeled electrolyte packets, and logging template before your next flight. If you need the physical foundation, build your kit at shop.nomadlifesuccess.com. Then run the protocol, record the result, and improve the system from actual data, not from a guess made while exhausted. Fix the physical bottlenecks first.
Small system. Clear signals. No heroic overcorrection.
That is your high-performance blueprint for today. Remember, treat your biology like your business infrastructure. If your physical stack fails, the business stops. Minimize the friction and stay optimized.